Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Low Port Podcast. Tim Herron's back from Mexico, but he just doesn't like me anymore. So I'm going to talk with another local Albuquerque, New Mexico shooter today. So that's Phoy St. John. So welcome to the podcast, Phoy.
It's nice to be here. Thanks.
So Phoy, I kind of moved away from Albuquerque in late 2021, I think,
Okay.
and I hadn't seen you shoot. I came back in, I think, early 2023, and all of a sudden, you're out here shooting all the time. And not only do you do USPSA, which is my main shooting sport, but I think you're also doing a ton of IDPA, which I've never done. So, how did this begin for you? How did you dive into it like this? What got you
Oh
going?
gosh. So one of my mentors, Rich Donahue, he was
Oh,
like,
I know Rich. Yeah.
"Oh, perfect, yeah." So he was like, "Hey, you should come out and shoot." And I was like, "Okay." And so I think he was down in Las Cruces, or he was busy doing other things. And so I just got on a practice score, found a match, and my first match was August of 23, and that was a Del Norte USPSA match. And then
Oh, my match was your first match.
Yeah, and then the
That's
next week
awesome.
was a Del Norte IDPA match, and so I caught the bug bad, so it was a good time.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. I'm glad I could be the introduction, that first hit that gets
Yeah,
you into
thanks.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, still
No.
chasing that. So thank you.
That's fantastic. Yeah, no, I've especially the last 2 months at the Del Norte USPSA match, we've had a ton of new shooters. So I feel like it's becoming a funnel for new folks, which is kind of my whole purpose of doing that. I really want the community to just get bigger. So more clubs get attended, more people care about competition shooting and 2A and all these cool things. And beyond that, as obviously you're experiencing, it's just a heck of a fun thing to do.
Yeah, and it's cool to see the new shooters and stepping into that mentorship role for them. And because I've only been doing this for 9 months now. So yeah, it's weird to start off as a new guy, still feel new, but still being able to give to those new shooters as well.
For sure. So did you feel like it was a pretty like welcoming type community and stuff then when
Oh
you
yeah,
showed
oh
up?
yeah.
Yeah.
The Del Norte one was absolutely the best experience I've had in a new place.
Oh
So I used to,
my God.
so I used to race cars,
Stop.
and okay, well,
Yeah.
no, so I used to
I
race
didn't mean it.
cars, and
Yeah.
I actually used to race with Tim, which was
Tim
bizarre.
Heron.
Yeah,
Did you? Okay.
and
So was that SCCA?
yeah, so we did a lot of autocross, and then I was like,
That is so
so
cool.
so I got out of that because it started to get a little weird. New people coming in, the things started to change. It wasn't very inviting anymore, and it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So got out of
Anything
that.
with a motor.
Yeah, exactly. And so got out of that and got 2014 ish, and got deployed. Came back. Looking for something else to do. And like I said, Rich Donahue got me started on the whole shooting thing, and that was that. But yeah, like I said, it was going to the Del Norte event for the first time was by far the most welcoming event I have experienced in years. So
That's incredible to
yeah,
hear.
thank you, and I really enjoy the environment and also the community of it. Like everybody was just super welcoming, super inviting, and everybody just wanted to help and see me succeed. I was like, "Well, this is awesome! Yeah, let's keep doing that."
Cool. So who is Rich Donaghy and why did he say, hey, boy, I think you ought to go do this shooting competition thing?
So Rich was my original instructor for firearms training. So I'm in law enforcement, uh, first response, medicine, uh, military, and so he was one of the people who got me going into like, hey, shooting is important for your job. Be good at it. Hope to God you never have to use it, but be good at it just in case you have to use it. I was like, okay. And
Sound
so
advice.
yeah, so his training got me through my first couple years of police work. Uh, Went to the military, got to do some kind of oddball stuff there. His words are just like, hey, at the time, front sight. I was like, okay, and made it through the deployment just fine. So it was it worked out very well. Because of his teaching, his stuff, I got to do a lot of really neat things with the military, and then came back and started doing the EMS stuff out on the streets, and got to help out with SWAT, got to help out with K9. I've got to meet a lot of other people from around the state and law enforcement and teach them, which was crazy. And so what happened was I became a sort of a big fish in a small pond, and I was like, oh man, I'm awesome. I'm a great shooter. I'm gonna do all this stuff. Go compete, and I got smashed my first event. Great. So
the dentist is beating you. It's just like, God damn.
oh yeah, just the accountant.
Yeah. We've all been there. Yeah.
Yeah, the 20-year retiree. I like barely stand. Like, you beat me? Like, how does that happen? So yeah, it was great. Very, very eye opening. And I said, I caught the bug of shooting better, trying to not only compete with other people, but trying to be better than how I was before. So
Yeah.
I look at my videos, I record everything, and the movement's getting better, the shooting is becoming more efficient. Is it where I want to be? No, but we're getting there.
Everyone will tell you that, though. They're like, everybody's got room to grow, in their own mind, no matter how good they are, which is kind of the fun of it. There's always something to work on.
Right. Yeah.
But, yeah, that's awesome to hear. I think Richie gave you some good advice to come out and shoot.
Yeah.
He's always a fun guy. Usually I run into him when I was doing more 3-gun. We'd go up to Raton and shoot like Rocky Mountain or the He-Man big 3-gun matches up there,
Right.
which are just a ton of fun. And he's a super funny guy, and
Yeah,
a police officer too. So he would always, there's a bunch of firefighters that shoot here in Albuquerque, and so the firefighters and the cops just always are going at each other.
Yeah.
And the things they say to each other are often very questionable. And as an outsider looking in, it's just a great time. So it's it's cool. It's cool to see.
I love it, and doing the EMS stuff with them on the street, that opened up the door to even more smack talking, especially at the
I bet. So. I bet. Yeah. Yeah. So you enjoy the black rifle matches too, then?
Oh yeah, it's great. God, when was my first one? Oh yes, I think it was the end of last year was my first one, and yeah, that was fantastic too. It's like I haven't shot a rifle at distance, up close, like the mix of everything. I hadn't done that before. Like it was all flat range stuff, and then it became a 2-way range. Things got weird. So I was like, all right, let's go have fun with this. So Riley McMullen got me into it. He was like, "Hey, you should come out."
Another firefighter.
Yeah. Yeah. Smack talking between us never stops. On the job, on the range, it's all good.
It's nature's way,
right? Yeah. And so through him, I also started doing some other things at night, which were kind of fun, and getting introduced to shooting under night vision. And I was like, this is amazing. Like I had never done that before. And so, again, lots of opportunities with the local community of shooters. And so I always say, yeah, like, why not? What's the worst thing that's going to happen?
It's always fun, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think the black rifle matches, we don't do those regularly. Usually if there's like a gap in where I can't do a USPSA match or Drew can't run a 3-gun match at Del Norte, we'll, set up a black rifle match, which for people who don't know is literally just show up with like an AR or an AK or whatever kind of like modern rifle you might have. And they're always super popular because all you really need is the gun and like maybe 2 or 3 mags, and you don't need a belt or anything. You just stick the mags in your back pocket and you're good to go for the match. So it's super accessible. And running and gunning, usually we only shoot out to about 200 yards, but then there's a ton of like close, fast shooting too. It's just a really cool mix, and it's hard to beat a good black rifle match.
Oh yeah, it's great, and it was fun. On the last one, got my wife out there too, and
nice.
Those stupid memory stages.
Yeah,
all of them I suck. And she goes out there and smoked me. And I think like
Oh no.
so in
Well, good for her.
yeah, in raw
Yeah.
time, I think I beat her by like 10, 15 seconds over like a 30-second course, maybe. But after all the penalties and all the mistakes,
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
she was like 30 seconds ahead of me. I was like, what?
She
So
gotcha. She gotcha.
yeah, and that was
Yeah.
like her first time shooting, like got 6 years, something like that. I was like, must be nice.
Off,
So,
off the couch performance. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah. I use one of your wife's little embroidery things as the tag for my optic cover on my open gun. It's a little Jolteon Pokemon, so that's very cool.
Nice.
And I bought Joe, who's a 70-something-year-old shooter. We go shoot all the time together. I got him a Patrick Star little embroidery thing from your wife. He doesn't know who Patrick is, but I find it entertaining that he's
Oh,
got
that's awesome.
Patrick
Yeah.
Star on his gun.
Oh, speaking of
Yeah,
which,
yeah.
yeah, there you go.
There it is. That's him. Yeah, I need to get a few more of those actually for
Yeah.
keychains and other optic covers and stuff like that. They're really fun. So, and you always have colorful Pokemon or other clothing on at the range. You have a very unique range fashion sense, and I think that's worth going into for a minute.
Oh God. All right.
At least you're not wearing
So
5'11" brown pants like the rest of us.
no. So so fun story about that. So I found that there's like the whole gray man thing, right? And
Hmm.
like everybody looks the same, and I'm like, dude, the first person I see with 5'11" pants and Oakleys, like if I were to go off the deep end, I'd be like, I'm gonna find that guy because I know that
That's
one
a
is where
that's
the
a loot drop. Yeah, you're gonna get some loot off that guy.
oh yeah, absolutely. I'm like at least a Glock 19, right?
Yeah, guaranteed.
so so my thing was, how do I look not only not unintimidating, to look that way, but to also be easily recognized by like, God forbid something happens, right? So I was just like, you know what? I want to wear something just totally off the wall. Well, my wife not only does the embroidery, but she makes all my clothes too. So she's like, hey, I'm going to get all this fabric. What do you want? I'm like, I want blues,
Gengar.
purple. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or give me a giant
yeah.
Gengar. Give me this Yoda thing. It's all good. And so it just looks ridiculous, but there's a purpose too. And so by looking at the shirts, right, you have the patterns on there, and so when I go conceal something, right, it doesn't print at all. And so I carry full size guns, 18 rounds in the mag. I have a 24 round extended, and you can't see it. And
It
so
works. Yeah.
there's that part too. So I'm like, well, if it works in public, let's go out and shoot it just to make sure that again, train with what you use. And so I was like, I'm going to do that. And then it turned into this whole thing of I'm just going to go out and shoot like this all the time. So at every event, at least I have a fun shirt on. I think in IDPA at the state match, I have to wear pants with a belt loop, so I can't wear the cool shorts.
Oh
But at
no.
the USPSA matches, I wear my either my battle belt or I wear the Hunter Constantine EDC, and so it's
Oh yeah. Yeah.
the elastic in the back, and so you don't need belt loops for that. So yeah, so
Well, there's no missing you on the range because you're always brightly colored in festive patterns,
yes.
and you're tall too. You're 6 something. So
Yeah, 6'5". Yeah, I'm a giant cartoon character out on the range.
yeah, so you're very noticeable. So it's good. So we know who to go to because you got the EMS training if
Exactly.
ever an accident happens. Heaven forbid.
Yeah.
Um, on the note of clothing, I don't have anything, so fun as what you wear. But one thing that I actually had my mom start, it's funny enough, I'm 35 years old. But one thing I had my mom make for me was dry fire shorts. So I'll get like just like sweatpants style shorts, and
Uh-huh.
then I send them off to her, and she'll sew in like a shooting inner belt into them with the flaps on the front undone, so I can like Velcro it just to the tightness I want. And then
Yeah.
I've always got an inner belt on, even when I'm comfortable, and I can just throw on like my outer belt and dry fire a little bit, and then go chill for a while. It's funny, but it does make you practice more. Like
That's
it feels
rad.
great.
I
Yeah,
like that.
your wife could do that easily, I think,
Yeah.
with everything she's making. So
Yeah.
something to think about.
She's
Yep.
listening right now. So
Yeah,
yeah.
there she is. Yeah.
Yeah, there
So
she is.
there's your Christmas present. That's an easy one. Seriously, I'm gonna ask my mom. All I want for Christmas is just another pair or two of dry fire shorts. That's all I need.
That's fantastic.
Maybe a dry fire pants for the chilly months, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wintertime's a little rough out here
yeah,
sometimes. So
but yeah. So okay, so that's the fashion.
yeah.
So you did USPSA first. You basically dove into IDPA right away. You still do both. It seems like probably just about every week whenever you get the chance.
Yeah.
So how do those stack up? If another new shooter was wondering, well, I'm kind of interested in competition, but I don't know if I want to try this USPSA thing or I want to do this IDPA thing. USPSA might seem more gamer kind of oriented.
Yeah.
IDPA, at least on the face of it, seems more defensive oriented. So what's your take on all of that? Do you have a recommendation? What's the deal with these two sports?
All right. So big difference is going to be IDPA is concealment only. So
Unless you're shooting a PCC in IDPA.
correct. Then you have to hide it in your pants. So
Yeah, no problem for you.
yeah, it's like but so in IDPA, a lot of the guys they have an outer belt, but then they'll wear this weird vest thing, and so they look like just tactical fishermen, and so it looks bizarre. But the whole purpose is to everything's from concealment. Your mags are concealed, your guns concealed, and you run through the course. Very low round counts, and so I think got 18 rounds. I think is usually what we do because it's two mags. And so for carry optics, ESP, it's 10 rounds plus one in the gun, depending on the start. And then you usually have a spare in a pocket. I carry a sidecar, so I just have the mag in the gun, and I have the mag in the sidecar, and that's it. That's all you got. And so very low round counts, 18 ish. And
So
then
two mags is usually going to be enough to get you
yeah,
through
yeah,
anything.
it's done. So I think 100 to 150 rounds will get you through a match pretty easily. Um, Whereas USPSA, you have the option, right? So you can either go from concealment or you can go from an outer belt. Today I used my battle belt. I had three mags, my gun, my IFAC, everything was on me, and it's pretty much a run what you brung kind of thing, and it's all good. Higher round counts, I think. God, what was our slowest one today? 22 rounds.
Something like that. Yeah. The classifier was I think 14, but
Yeah,
otherwise 22 to 28 rounds. Yeah.
yeah, and then you have our blaster stages. Thanks, Wayne. Where it's like 51 rounds, 3 rounds per target, and there's like what? I don't think I brought enough ammo. So yeah,
Wear out that trigger finger.
exactly. So that's for me. That's the main difference is concealment versus not, and then low round counts versus higher round counts. And then the last thing is going to be the basis of it. Where so like USPSA, we go off of hit factor, so it's points per time, whereas in IDPA it's time. And so you have your raw time, and then in your center one is 0, and then you have a -1, or I'm sorry, you add a second, and then you add 3 seconds instead of Alpha Charlie Delta. And so you're awarded more in IDPA for accuracy over outright speed, whereas in USPSA you have that balance, right? So if you're slow and accurate, you're not going to get as good of a hit factor as somebody who's throwing a couple Charlies here and there, but are just smoking through the course. And so there, for me, that's the other part of it. So when I want to practice my accuracy, make sure that I can actually get good rounds on target for my job, I focus that on IDPA. But for movement, I go to USPSA. And it's just, for me, it's a little bit more freestyle. It's more fun in the fact that we talk a lot more garbage. But again, hit factor scoring for me is just a little bit more enjoyable. And so that's the more fun part, whereas the IDPA is more for work. That's the more
Yeah.
business focused aspect for me.
Yeah, I've actually never done IDPA. So I should probably go out and try a match sometime.
Yeah, I try it.
Yeah,
I say twice. The first time you do it, it's just getting used to the rules. You have this weird thing. It's like when you come around a corner, you have to pie it out. So you have target priority, and so you go
right.
like close to far, and then you go as you pie your corner, you go from out to in, and so you have these priorities of what you have to shoot first. If you don't, then
Okay.
the added time comes on, and it's more rules.
So in
So
USPSA, the stage is basically do whatever you think is fastest,
exactly
um, or you like the best. But with IDPA, there's like rules of engagement that
correct.
are have some basis in a defensive philosophy. Cool. And so for a new person who you were only 9 or so months ago, would you say should they agonize a lot over should I do IDPA, should I do USPSA, or should they just go out and try one of them?
For me, I just say go out and do it. Go
Yeah,
shoot. Go shoot. Go have fun. That's the big thing is the having fun part. Uh, so many people have said it before. Don't go out to win. If you go out to win, you're going to get smashed and you won't come back. If you go out to shoot and have fun, oh yeah, that every time you go out, no matter how good or how bad you shoot, it's still going to be fun.
it is a lot of fun. Yeah. So that's awesome. Um, I've noticed, following your Instagram and observing you on the range, that you like to switch guns a lot, and you have a lot of guns that you're often sending out to have optic cuts put on, or ports, or fancy colored Cerakotes to go with the clothing, I presume, or this or that. So
Yeah.
tell me about like the guns that you like to shoot, and
Oh,
the kind of hobby from the equipment aspect for you.
so I in my off time, work time, well, call it work time. I train other law enforcement, and so for them, they're everybody uses a different kind of gun. So you have your Berettas, so your double action, single action. So you got those, your shadows. You have your 1911, 2011 platforms. I have some of those. And then you have your striker guns. And then, so I have them all set up in different ways. Magwell, no magwell, normal triggers, not normal triggers, optic, no optic. So that way I can sort of cater the training to the people that I'm working with.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so for me to maintain, we'll call it proficiency, uh, I come out and compete with all of them. And so depending on the day or what I have coming up, whoever say, oh, I want to go shoot or I want to go learn some stuff from you, I was like, okay, what gun do you have? And I'll take that gun out in competition, just make sure I'm spun up on manipulations, how it shoots, what to expect, how to where I should keep my hands mainly. I do a lot of slide stop overrides when I use my Beretta grip on a striker gun. I override the slide stop all the time, so I
Yeah.
have to change that up, and then through competition, I'll be like, that I messed that up, and it sort of drives that home before I have to go teach it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I also it's probably kind of a downfall for me in terms of shooting performance, but I just geek out on shooting different guns. I like
Yeah,
seeing the different performance characteristics, just feeling the different platforms and getting used to them. For me, that's fun. So I've shot Berettas, Canics, MPs, 2011s, you name it,
oh
and
yeah,
it's fun to switch around. Maybe not optimum for like maximizing your performance and just getting everything you can out of one platform,
right,
but there's something to be said for being able to shoot like anything that's in your hand decently well too. So I
right,
think that's pretty fun. And just like you said, like you find out certain things work and don't work for you with different platforms. And usually it comes out in the stress of competition, not even in live fire or dry fire practice, but in the match when like there's some adrenaline, tension's higher. Like for me with Berettas and Canics, I've learned that I have to disable the slide stop. Like I cut the tab off the slide stop that would allow it to lock the slide back. Because the way my grip comes in, I push up the slide stop on those guns, and I just
yeah,
would constantly be locking them to the rear during
right,
shooting. So you learn cool stuff that you know could help you a lot in a defensive scenario
right.
when you run your platform at these matches and stuff. So
Yeah, and I always like to recommend to people to at least, again, run what you brung, but
yeah,
run what you carry, especially because, like I said, all those things do come out in competition. I don't know what it is about other people watching or if it's the time, But yeah, as soon as the
all
beep
of that.
goes off, man, all my plans go out the window. I forget what I'm doing. It's bad. But again, it makes sure that I am aware and can compensate for whatever's in my hand.
Yep. Yeah, learning to think with a gun in your hand is a thing. And doing
Yes,
that while the adrenaline is flowing and all this and that and the pressure is on. It's I get that competition, even like something that's more defensively oriented notionally, like IDPA, is still not like, I don't know, it's not tactical training or this or that. But I do feel like it offers something unique to that, that people who even might not have any interest in just competition for competition's sake could benefit from. Feeling out their gear, learning how they perform under pressure, and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, I think it's worth doing for just about anybody who's interested in shooting.
agreed.
Yeah. And so, how would you recommend folks get started in this? Like, if they're in the Albuquerque area, just find something on Practice Score. Is that what you did?
So I had somebody like Rich say, "Hey, these matches are available. Go find them. This is what I recommend." And I went on to Practice Score, found an event that was local, again Del Norte, that fit my schedule. I was like, "I'm gonna go do that. That sounds fun." And then there's what ranges do we have here? So we have Del Norte, we have the Albuquerque range, we have Los Lunas, and we have Zia,
Zia, yep.
and all
We
of
used to
them.
have Founders Ranch as well, which is a shame that that's not
Yeah,
operating right now. That was a great
yeah,
range.
that was a close one to my house, so I was like, "Duh." But you can. It's easy on Practice Score to find the match that you want to do based on proximity or the event. So that's nice. But also on Instagram, there's like you, we have you say, "Hey, this match is coming up." I'll go find people. People find me on Facebook and Instagram. Be like, "Hey, I want to do that. Where should I go?" And I'm like, "Hey, we actually have a match this weekend. Sign up. Here's the link." And so between practicescore.com and social media, it's pretty easy to find a match here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not too difficult. And like we've slightly touched on, you don't really need that much. Probably just a safe holster, the gun that you want to shoot. It can be your carry gun, no problem. And probably 2 or 3 mags, enough to hold 40 or so rounds for a USPSA kind of match, maybe even just 2 mags for IDPA. So you really don't need a ton of gear. Just like you said, run what you brung.
Yeah, and I think for IDPA we do pocket loads, and same thing in
Yeah.
USPSA. Like there was one guy today that was doing pocket loads too. I was like, well, okay,
Why not?
so, and
Yep.
it wasn't like detrimental at all. I mean, it was, again, he was practicing for a specific match coming up. That's their rules, and he was practicing and he was rocking it. So like, good on you. I dig it.
Go for it. Yeah, you don't need to have all the raced out equipment. Just run whatever you fancy, as long as it's safe, which most stuff is. So
Don't
yeah,
bring a shoulder holster.
don't bring a shoulder holster. We try not to point guns uprange at other people, and
Yeah,
with a shoulder holster by design, it does that. So it's a problem. It's a problem. It's fun.
it's fun. Yeah,
It's neat. Yeah, it gets your heart going. That's
yeah,
cool. But the shooting itself will do that for you. So there's no need to point your firearm at anybody. Um, yeah, I don't see a lot of ankle holsters either. I don't think I'd recommend that. But
yeah.
something in or around the belt area is good.
Right.
Let's
Yeah,
stick with that. So that's awesome. So out of all the guns you shoot, do you have a favorite right now?
I do. So I have a Langdon Tactical 92, and
Oh, I
it's
love those.
oh god.
Yeah.
And so I got that one earlier this year, and I put the match hammer in there, and that
Mm.
reset is nasty quick. I was like, this is awesome. So I also have an STI Hawk,
Hmm.
and so I put a Atlas ignition kit in there, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. Then I got the 92, and I was like, wow, that's not as awesome as I thought. And so, but yeah,
Loretta's are really amazing guns. I have a bunch of 92s actually. I mostly shoot 2011s, but I had a stint doing carry optics where I was shooting 92s, and I was like, these things
nice.
are awesome.
And they're
And in the off season, I'd like to get back to them and do a little bit more carry
yeah,
optics with those bad boys.
yeah. And there was the match at Rio Grande that I had last weekend. There was, I mean, it was like beach sand, and ugh, it was so gross. I dropped my mag in the beach sand,
Uh,
And I
Dang.
was like, oh God. And so in the video, you see this just glob of dirt just come off of it. I was like, oh, loaded it and it just, it's like, oh God, I hope this works. And I was able to finish the stage. I was like, that was awesome.
Yeah, no, I've got a similar story with a 92
Yeah.
actually. So shortly after I moved back to Albuquerque from Salt Lake, I went and did a Zia 3-gun match, and that's just outlaw style. So the rules are a little bit looser, I guess. Um, but I was going to go shoot like a bigger carry optics match for USPSA, so I decided to shoot 3-gun, but shoot my like Beretta for carry optics, and so I had that rig set up, and that's a USPSA rig. So in USPSA, you just draw your pistol and start shooting. You don't have to really have retention or anything like
Right.
that. It's like a gun bucket usually if you want to have a nice quick draw. And so the belt was set up like that, but I was doing 3-gun. And so we started out shooting rifle like prone or up some barricade or something, and with an empty pistol. And so I did the rifle and I started running, just hauling as fast as I could. And because the holster was so loose, the gun just popped right out and it was empty. We were loading it empty, so I didn't get disqualified in this 3-gun rule set. But it just went into, that moon dusted Zia, and I was like, oh. But the R didn't stop me. They were just like, it's empty, keep going. And I was like, really? And so I was like, okay. And so just just pure dust everywhere, so gritty. But that gun did not malfunction, and I shot 2 mags through it, finished the stage, and I could feel it just chunking as it was shooting. It was like, it was nasty, but man, that thing rocked. That was a Langdon 92,
Yeah.
no problem.
And the other thing I love about it is there's the double strike on there. And so sometimes I'll have these really hard primers and I'll do my single action. It's like tink, bam, and the second shot will go off. I'm like,
it's gonna
okay,
go. Yep, that's cool.
So,
I even like the PX4s. I just have a basic PX4. I had my buddy Ross stipple it up, and
nice.
so it's got a good grip now. I don't know. I might want to just put nice iron sights on it, so I have a cool production gun to mess around with a little bit, and maybe in the off season. I think production is still cool.
Oh yeah,
which is iron sights. But I don't know. Maybe sending it off to Langdon to get an optic cut would be cool too. I like the way the PX4s shoot with that. The rotating barrel is just a very different design, and they return really well in my experience.
I have the PX4 compact from Langdon, and that thing was awesome too. There was the trigger endurance match 3 weeks ago, and I was blowing sand. Why do we always have sand here? Desert life, and like I think everything choked at least once, either a magazine failure or a gun failure of some sort. And the PX4 just chugged right through, and it was great. So it was my PX4, and then do you know Danny Chan?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. And so his PDP, I think our 2 guns were the only ones that actually made it through the match without a malfunction.
There we go.
That's awesome. But yeah, like I said, the rotating barrel on there was incredible. And then I also have that was an outlaw match as well. So I had a VP Armory comp on there, and that thing didn't move at all. Like
nice.
It was incredible to shoot.
Is that like comp that clips onto the Picatinny and then it just hangs in front? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So on mine it does that, and then you run the crossbolt through the flashlight, and then that's what secures it onto the rail.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, that seems like a cool setup.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the PX4 it's such a simple gun, like the way they engineered it. They actually made it way less complicated than a 92 is, like to take apart.
Oh yeah.
But it still uses 92 like sears and hammers, I think. So like when I got mine, I just dropped in a 92 hammer and sear, like some elite hammer and a sear I had worked on or something. So that automatically made the trigger pull better than factory. And then they can run lighter hammer springs for whatever reason, like the geometry of the hammer setup. But I took like an 11-pound hammer spring for a 92, and I actually cut like a coil or two off of it. So who knows what that's at, 10, maybe something.
Yeah, probably
and
10.
It's still like perfectly reliable with a super light double action. It's just, those are such slick guns. I really like them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're, like I said, like with yours too, I stippled mine, and it doesn't move at all, and it's great.
They're awesome. Yeah, it's tough. Too many guns.
Always.
I like totally gave into this happens to me every couple months. I just like cannot resist the autistic urge to take a bunch of like my 9mm handguns out and just shoot them all together on one day at the range and compare the subtle differences of them. And
I,
it soothes my mind for some reason.
I
But
yeah,
like, yeah,
I feel
but
that. Yeah,
I
I've done it
found I
times.
actually liked my double single guns a lot, even compared to the striker guns. Probably my favorite striker gun that I ran was like a Polymer 80 Glock 17 that
Yeah,
just shoots really nice.
yeah,
Um, but the the 92, and I was doing this while iron sights. The 92 was awesome. The PX4 was basically just as awesome, even though I hardly ever shoot that one in comparison. And then I even have from it was like Superstition or some match at Rio Salado in Arizona. I
yeah.
won an IWI Jericho 2 Enhanced. So it's like a CZ clone, more like a Tanfoglio clone, I guess,
Right.
with a Palmer lower double single. And it's got the heaviest double action trigger that God's probably ever created,
Like an
just
eight.
from the factory. It's heavy. That it's bone stock, but man, the geometry of that, the shape of it feels like a Chile grip or a PT grip on a 2011 a lot with the large back strap. So like it points really good for me, and it has a heavy trigger, but it resets so nice. That gun really impressed me. So I
Yeah,
was thinking about maybe uh, just putting in a lighter hammer spring, and maybe that would be a cool production gun. And
yeah.
then the other thing, I don't have any other IWI guns, but I was impressed with what they did. They, for this like new enhanced version of the Palmer Jericho 2, they just said, "Hey, we're just going to make the sight dovetails Novak sights like for a 1911." So like you have unlimited sight options basically because it's such a
Yeah,
common cut. So I don't know, I'm geeking out on that gun, and I really liked how it shot. So
that'd be cool to shoot. Yeah,
yeah, I'll
should
bring
do
it
it.
out sometime.
Yeah, we'll do another gun swap. It'll be a good time. Well,
I'm gonna try to not diverge too much and try to actually shoot open well for this season. But yeah, as soon as the off season hits, I'm gonna start goofing around with all sorts of crazy stuff. So,
yeah, I
which
will
is
say
part of the fun of it for me.
yeah, I will say it's been fun watching your open shooting journey as well.
Oh,
Was it Puerto Rico or where was
yeah,
the? Yeah,
yeah. In
that,
February, I went to Puerto Rico to do it's like an IPSC USPSA kind of hybrid rule match, but that
yeah,
was a really cool experience. Yeah.
yeah. And then seeing you do that, and then seeing like the different what's the right word? How you go about running a stage, and where you're talking with Tim about it, and it's like, hey, go for focus more on the accuracy aspect. On this one, focus more on the time, and see where you're at, see what works out well for you, and seeing your journey through that has been really cool too.
It's something I'm constantly feeling out. And every time you change divisions, even like it's a slightly different balance of speed versus accuracy for major versus minor, or how fast other people are going in the division and all this. So yeah, every time you switch, it's a feeling out process. And open is kind of crazy because everybody has the most advantage they possibly can from the gear side. And so the times are always nutty. And so you really have to learn to trust yourself to shoot your process and still not like drop crazy points.
Right,
Um, but you still have to be putting down the time. So it's a tough division. They're all tough in their own way,
right,
which is one of the fun things. But yeah, open is definitely a you have to be aggressive.
yeah. And it's seeing the difference in the shooting techniques between the two. Like seeing the open guys shoot, like the second shot is going off like as you guys are turning your heads. And so it's just, like you said, it's that trust that the gun is in the right spot to take that shot and you're moving. And it's weird, I guess, to see that compared to again how I was taught. And it's like, you have those the follow up and you're like, okay, 2 shots, 3 sight pictures. And now that I'm getting into this, I'm like, 1 sight picture, 2 shots, then just move on, right? So it's this whole rewiring of the visual process, and then I guess the technique of how to move on from a target. And it's just fun to see other people do it, and it's fun to learn how to do it.
That exactly, yeah. And so in practical shooting, we use the terms predictive shooting and reactive shooting a lot. So reactive shooting is more like you described in like a Leo self-defense context where every shot has a sight picture. And we still have that in competition shooting, but time is a huge factor. So You only really have a sight picture on each shot for targets that are challenging enough to demand that. So you're going out past like 15 yards or something like that for an open target, or maybe it's a target that's closer in that has like a no shoot penalty target in front of it or something. Then yeah, you're aiming. But otherwise, you're trying to shoot predictively as much as you can, which is that one sight picture, two shot thing. And when you have an open gun, that gun's not moving very much, so you can really rip shots. With my open guns, I can get 10 splits and stuff like that. It's just crazy. So 10 hundredths of a second. But you can get ahead of yourself too. Like you were saying, like I did it today. The timing is, it's something you really have to practice because it's easy to get ahead of yourself, literally. Like today on one stage, I was really pushing speed and I had the fastest time in the match, but I pushed off of two targets. Just basically like saw the dot, pulled the trigger twice, but I didn't dwell enough and I just like swept over it. So I had two mics. And it would have taken 100 or, maybe 500ths of a second or less or something on each of those targets to just like confirm enough and pause that I could have got the second shot. But when you're running at that ragged edge, sometimes you don't do it. So I dialed back. That's good feedback, and made sure I had good shots on the remaining stages of the match. But that's the edge you're riding. And in open, it's even crazier for the time aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that I found at the local matches too. That's the time to push and find those limits, and then go back to training on how to get to that point without overdriving. And so you're always pushing that 100% level for yourself up, and then you go to competition. Now you dial it back to 90, 95% when it really matters. But usually, like for me, I'll go about 80. Because I still don't have the consistency, right?
Yeah.
And so if I dial it down to 80, then I'm just like, okay, I know I'll be able to hit all these shots. I know I'll hit the targets. And then sometimes I'll go and I'm just like, I'm going to go at 100. Let's see what happens.
There you go.
Then you start getting Delta's mics, like forget targets.
But you have to push those limits to grow and like speed up your visual processing. So it's a good thing to do sometimes, whether you can do it in a practice or a local match or something.
Exactly.
And it's a very subjective thing as well, because everybody has a different subjective idea of like what an acceptable sight picture is for a particular target, right? Yeah. And some people are more conservative on that, and some people are more liberal. I found I'm very liberal with that, so it's easy for me to like ramp up and start shooting mics and deltas. And so for me, like perceptually, I feel like I have to dial myself more down than other people. Like some people probably over confirm, and so for them to really run fast, they need to like push themselves to an uncomfortable pace. And it's just interesting how people come at it from different sides. Yeah. I was actually talking with Drew after the match today, and he was like, where am I losing time? And it really looked like it was coming down to his aggression of shooting, because his movement's fine, his manipulations are good, but it's just he's losing a little bit on each split and transition.
Right.
And it's just because he's aiming more than he probably has to, actually.
Right.
I'm usually the opposite. But it's interesting. It's interesting to see how people come at it from different sides, and then it all comes out in hit factor scoring, which is why I like that so much. Because it's points, accuracy, over time, speed. Right. And so it's just a simple and beautiful equation for figuring out how good you are at shooting.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that too. Like bringing that back to my peers and my students. It's like, I get it. You were able to do these two really tight things, but it took you 5 seconds. Whereas I did it and it was acceptable, and I did it in 0.6 seconds. So let's find an even ground here where where it's acceptable, but the time is there and you are aggressive enough to be able to, if you're, for whatever mission you have, whether that be competition, self-defense, law enforcement, whatever, that you trust yourself to meet those accuracy and time requirements that you put on yourself. And so that's why I love the hit factor scoring, because it just makes sense. Being able to quantify that has been awesome.
So you enjoy the competition side of the matches, you enjoy the self-improvement side, and it sounds like you feel like it's helping you from like your professional kind of position, as well as just like general self-defense probably.
Yes, absolutely. And it's been fun watching like how I was before. So I have qualifications, once a year, twice a year kind of ish. And like at the last one, I was like, I'm just going to burn it down, because I've been doing competition shooting now for 4 months. at that point when that qualification came out. And like there's one, it was like a two plus two at 10 or something like that, and you have 12 seconds. I mean, that's an eternity, right? And
Yeah,
so
it's a
I
long
was like,
time.
yeah, I was like, nah, I'm just gonna see how fast I can do this. And so it was ridiculous. Like I got my 2+2 done before everybody else like finished up the reload, and I was like, what is going on here? Like, why aren't you guys pushing yourselves to be faster, be more accurate? I was like, yes, you are passing the minimum requirement, but being the
Is
minimum.
that do you want is that what you want on the streets?
No,
No, you want to
no,
be fast and accurate.
that's a good way to you're if there's no stress, right? And I've been seeing this a lot more in self defense shootings, law enforcement shootings around the country, and you'll see like 100 shots fired and two hit the target, and like
That's
but they had like 10 on some passerby. I'm
that's a
like,
zero. That's a zero hit factor for sure. That's a lot of
yeah,
mics and no shoots.
yeah. I was like, no, we can't have that. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard,
Yeah,
but it has to be self induced, right?
yeah.
There's like nobody else is going to do it for you. Put those standards on yourself, hold yourself to that, and then get better. And
There you
so
go.
that's been my professional shooting mantra, and competition shooting has just supercharged that. And I'm just like, wow, I'm getting better faster. Like I said, since starting competition shooting, the amount of skill that I've acquired has been tremendous. I've been doing this
Well,
for what?
it's talking about your shooting journey too. Like I can see that in you. You're getting better and better as the months go on. And there's a lot of relatively newer folks in Albuquerque now that are starting to like kind of get a little more serious, and it's cool to see.
Yeah,
Yourself, Danny Chan, who you mentioned, is getting really good.
yeah,
Dustin McGlasson and Jordan Madrid, those guys are getting good, and
yep,
Jeremy Kirsch, like just I feel like there's a lot of people who are starting to like get in, and the community's starting to
yeah.
grow and push each other, and I just love to see it. So
Yeah, and like I said, the competition between us has been fantastic. I mean, we all talk crap. We all know who's going to do better, but listen, it's just so much fun to get into somebody's head and
but
watch
when
them.
somebody messes up on a target, you're like, what's that? It's just a little delta on the side. You're like, huh,
That's not like you. It
that
happens.
was weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel bad for Wayne, because every time I point out, I was like, "Hey, did you fix your mag?" That stage, he'll have a mag malfunction. I'm like,
Oh,
sorry.
you're putting a hex on him.
Yeah, I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't mean to. It just kind of happens. Sorry. But now all
He must be using MBX mags. I just say that because I have problems with MBX mags in my
yeah,
2011s. But
same.
yeah,
I was like, when they were new, totally fine. And then they started to wear out a little bit. I'm like, God, these things suck.
they
Yeah,
suck. Yeah.
swap the guts. Okay, totally fine. But yeah, the
What
tubes.
guts do you run in them? TTI? Does that work?
Yeah, so I run
Okay.
TTIs, and then I have this weird like hybrid one on one of them where it's like a staccato follower and the MBX spring. That seems to be working out okay.
Hmm.
But
Interesting.
I haven't shot my 2011 in a while, so is it going
For,
to make it through a match? I have no idea. In practice, dry range indoors, yeah, it works great.
for me, I've noticed the MBX springs are the weak point.
Yeah,
And I've noticed more problems in my open guns than I have in other guns with MBX mags. Although I have had problems in like limited guns and stuff like that.
right.
But the MBX mag, like it seems like, so this is the front of the follower where the front of the bullet would be.
Yeah,
That's like it's really anemic to kick that top up.
it
And
really
then
is.
open guns are cycling so fast. I don't think the spring is kicking the round up fast enough.
Yeah,
And the slide's coming back and the bullet's low enough that it just like hits into the bottom of the feed ramp, gets stuck.
right.
And so if I
Yep.
like seriously like stretch out and
Right.
then tweak up like the MBX spring, it'll work for like a
Yeah,
mag or two,
I
but
saw
I
the
have to
same thing.
keep doing that. But with like Atlas mags and
Right.
TTI guts or staccato STI mags with TTI guts or Grams guts, like no problem. So I'm going to use those. But I might try
Yeah,
TTI in the MBX mag, so that was working for you.
yeah. So
Um,
that's working for me. I forgot who it was at the last Rio Grande match. That's what he was using as well. Like he swapped over to everything and didn't have a mag related issue on that match at all. So I was like, all right, cool. And so I think Jeremy is also doing that. Oh no, it was Tim Proctor. So he's using, or he recommended the MBX bodies with the TTI internals.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Tim Proctor's great. He hooked me up with a bunch of Atlas big stick tubes that I put TTI stuff in when I was having MBX problems. And yeah, those ones run perfect. So
Yeah.
he was right about that.
Yep.
Well, Phoy, it's awesome to hear a little bit more about, what your experience with practical shooting. It's cool to see like a Leo come out and get so enthusiastic about that. Like you said, I think it's better for you guys and your own self-preservation. It's better for us not getting hit as bystanders or whatever.
Oh God.
And it's just, I love to see cops come out and get good, because I think, just like everybody else, they could probably, benefit a lot from doing this.
Right.
And, when I was in Salt Lake City, there's a bunch of guys up there that do a great podcast. It's really funny, called the Paracast, all about practical shooting. And one of the guys that's on that regularly now is named Jared, and he's a SWAT officer, I believe now.
Okay.
In Salt Lake City, I don't know what department or whatever, but he's super big into competition. He's an excellent shooter, masterclass shooter, and he's getting a ton of his cop buddies to come out and shoot matches and stuff. So it's cool to see in that community how many officers are starting to like train up and really get good. And he even runs a match. It's a 2-part match. It's the cop match and then the not a cop match. And he does it every year. And it's a pistol match, but it has time plus scoring. So it's like 3-gun scoring. So it's just 2 on Brown.
Yeah.
2 on Brown. And or 1A to neutralize. And so it's a super fast, like hosey match. And it's a ton of fun. And so he does it for cops like on one weekend or Friday or something, and then for everybody else on Saturday or however it works. And I would highly recommend it. He usually does it in April, whether you're a cop or not. And at least when I did it, I won my division when I was doing, and I was not a cop, obviously, but this was my first place trophy. It just says definitely not a cop on a mug. And then, awesome. and then if you get second place in your division, it says probably not a cop. And if you get third place, it says possibly a cop or something like that. So he just rips on cops, but he is one, so it's cool.
Yeah,
and it's a really fun match. And I think between the two halves of it, the cops and the not a cops, they had like 400 people or something that shot it this past year.
Wow.
So they're drawing people from, surrounding states and stuff like that. So it's a big match now. But for the 2 people that listen to this podcast, I'll plug his match.
Is that on practice score, or is that
it is, I believe. I wanted to do it this year, but I just got too busy, unfortunately. But it's definitely worth the trip up there. It's just a hose fest, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I think I looked for it earlier this year. Somebody brought it up, and I was like, I don't even know how to search for that. So I looked up Salt Lake, looked up not a cop, and I couldn't find it. So that's why I was curious if it was on practice score.
He has a training company too. And you can find that on Instagram. I think it's called Waypoint Training or something like that. So if you find that, I'm sure you'll find stuff related to his match. So
nice.
Again, highly recommend it.
Yeah. Sounds fun. I might have to do that next year. And
we could go up.
Yeah. And go to the Caribbean next year.
That's cool. Salt Lake City is an amazing shooting community. Their local matches, well, about the time I moved back to Albuquerque, we're around like 100 people, and there would be 2 or 3 local matches a month. And now it seems like they're running them over multiple days. So they'll have like a Friday pre-match, Saturday. I don't know if they're doing like Sunday even too, but in total, like to shoot everybody through who wants to shoot their local matches, they're like, sometimes they're getting up to like 200 people on local matches and stuff now.
Are they doing the AM PM as well, or is it just one day?
I don't think so. I think they're just splitting it across days.
Okay.
But they've made those changes since I moved away. But like being around that community is what made me really want to like get involved, start the Del Norte Club, and try to grow the Albuquerque community, because we're not as big as Salt Lake, but we could be bigger than we are for our USPSA clubs and just our shooting clubs in general. Yeah, and it's awesome to have a big community. Like it's a level 2. You go to a match in Salt Lake City, essentially. You mess up, you're going to be in 20th place or something like that on stage. It's just so stacked. It's just GMs, masters all over the place. Yeah. And that's awesome. It's cool to see. I think we're going in that direction here. Yeah. So yeah, it is awesome to see.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I hope so. Like, what kind of time frame do you think? Like 2 years, 3 years, maybe?
Yeah, it's probably going to be a couple years. I think, especially at the Del Norte matches, especially these last few months, it seems like there's been a good crop of new folks, and I've been really trying with Instagram, email, Facebook. I'm not great at social media, but doing everything I can to try to get the word out, to bring new people in. And I think, especially these last couple months, I've seen a lot of new folks, a lot of whom are starting to return. And so
Right.
that's great. And I think it's reasonable for us to have 50 plus people very easily regularly instead of like the 20 to 30 we normally have. And I
Right.
think even more than that. I think probably 80 if we really hit the ground running in a couple of years we could hit. But
Yeah. I think
um
that sounds attainable.
yeah. And it's word of mouth too, like
Yeah.
the reach on social media. I don't have a ton of followers. The club doesn't have a ton of followers. None
Yeah.
of us local shooters really have a ton of followers generally.
Right.
And this kind of content gets throttled anyway by most of the social media platforms. So we just
Yep.
don't have a lot of reach, frankly. So word of mouth is a big deal. So
Yeah.
just talking to your friends, getting people to come out like Jared did in Salt Lake, getting like his Leo community to start coming out more and training.
Right.
Talk to the people you work with. I've gotten people from the building I work in to come out, and they're starting to repeat. And it's just that's how it really happens. I think
Yeah.
it's an
Yeah.
important thing.
It's that. I think that's one of the things that we have here in Albuquerque is that word of mouth is because our community as a whole is so small, and there are so many people who love firearms, and I think
Mhm.
I've gotten more people to show interest. And I'll be like, hey, check out these videos, check these things out. And that is what got them started. And so I've seen new shooters in IDPA down in Los Lunas, and then just the couple up here as well in USPSA. And I was like, oh, this is fun. So I hope this thing blows up. I think it'd be great. So
Me too. And are you going to do the sectional this year?
uh, I hope so.
What's
A
the
lot of the
hesitation?
So, so the hesitation has to come from school. And so
uh,
I'm currently in school, and that is right on the end of finishing and then getting a national certification. And so I'm
okay.
just like,
It's crunch time. It's
so
crunch
yeah,
time.
so it'll be close. And so as the time gets closer, then I'll have a better idea of what I will be able to do. But I'm hoping so because that's done at La Luz, right, this year.
It is, yeah, just north of Alamogordo. Very nice facility, very convenient location once you get to Alamogordo. So,
Yeah,
and they
once
have nice air. They actually have a lot of nice Airbnbs there. I just booked one, and they're
yeah,
cheap.
yeah,
So
it's I love it down.
make a weekend out of it. Yeah,
Exactly.
go see some white sand. It's
Go see some
great.
White Man, go see the
People love
Space
it.
Museum.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that'll be good. So yeah, so I'm schedule provided. I will be there. I'm also scheduled up for the state IDPA match. That's in Los Lunas. That's in the
Nice.
end of September, I think. September, October, somewhere in there. And so that one draws a ton of people. And I think the last year, God, there was like 30 squads or something crazy. I mean,
Holy cow!
but there are master, grandmaster, or sorry, master, distinguished master level shooters from all over the country came through. Like the whole Wilson combat shooting team came in. I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
holy crap. And
Glenn
so,
Shelby was probably there.
yeah, Glenn Shelby was there.
That guy
He's so,
rips.
God,
He's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually shot
Yeah.
against him at this last IDPA match,
Uh huh.
end of last month, and thought I did pretty well. I mean, in raw time, he smoked me, but he
Yeah.
was pushing really hard, and I was a little bit more conservative, and I think I was less than a second off his pace. Everything said and done, so
Oh, that's impressive.
I was
Yeah,
like, I'll take that. So
because in USPSA, that guy is hard to keep up with.
yeah,
Even with iron sights, he's splitting his like freaking 40 cal like it's an open gun. It's
yeah,
wild. Yeah.
yeah, and he was shooting a 45. Yeah, he was shooting his 45, and so I had him beat. So so I think he has to rock eight eight rounds in a mag, and I could do 10. And so my stage planning was a little bit more efficient. Reloads were a little bit less, and so it was a perfect storm to be able to be that close to him. And I have to blame USPSA for my movement being able to keep up with him.
Yeah. Well, that's an impressive feat. He's an animal.
Yeah.
And he's so soft spoken too. It's really funny. I remember early on when I was in 3 gun, I was doing a match in Colorado with Joe and Ross and the usual crew, and Glenn was up there shooting it too. And we were talking to him about the stage that had a lot of long range targets. And I think like you should shoot a bunch of rifle first, and then you get up to like the barricades and you shoot a bunch of long range. And we were worried like, oh, should we reload? Like if we have makeups, and we were like, Glenn, what do you think? If you miss a couple times on that like 500-yard target or these ones, like,
Yeah.
You're going to have to reload in position, and that's going to cost a lot of time. You should probably just, he's like, yeah, I don't miss. And we were like, oh, and he didn't. So I was like, all right, I need to get me one of them Wilson Combat ARs, and then I won't miss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be a good time. There's a lot of really fun matches coming up at the end of the year, so I'm looking forward to that. So
cool. Well, yeah, everybody should check out the New Mexico sectional. I think it's going to be really fun this year in Alamogordo. We already talked about Not a Cop in Utah. That's April. One of my probably actually my favorite USPSA match is the Utah State match that they do in Salt Lake City at the Slips Range. That one is always really well produced, and that's in September, usually Labor Day weekend. And I would also recommend people go up to that. It's definitely worth the trip. So check them out.
For good things. So yeah, I'll have to check it out as well.
All right. Well, Phoy, thanks for your time tonight. It was really great to hear a little bit more from you and
absolutely, it's my pleasure.
The shooting journey, the wardrobe, and the candy-colored Canucks and all of those things. So
absolutely,
it was great. All right, have a good one.
Hey, you too.
See ya.
See ya.